In the glittering world of Hollywood, some stars never left the glass empty when the cameras went off. Today, we reveal the 10 perpetually drunk stars of Hollywood. Drinking on sets, showing up drunk to premieres and sacrificing their careers to alcohol, these celebrities had a hard time counting their sober days. Are you ready? Because these stories reveal the price of a drunken career. Richard Burton. Richard Burton was as famous for his thunderous voice and classic performances as he was for his volcanic drinking habits. The Welsh actor celebrated for his roles in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, and Cleopatra was known to down up to 3 bottles of vodka a day. His intense romance with Elizabeth Taylor was punctuated by legendary drinking sessions and violent arguments. Their passionate love story, played out both on screen and off, was fueled by alcohol-fueled highs and lows. Burton admitted in interviews that he couldn't function without a drink, and the toll became visible in his health and performances. His erratic behavior, slurred speech, and bloated appearance in his later years painted a tragic picture of a man who once captivated the stage and screen. Despite stints at drying out, he always returned to the bottle. At just 58, Burton died from a cerebral hemorrhage, his body worn down by decades of alcohol abuse. His final years were marked by regret and failing health, a sharp contrast to the brilliance of his early career. His story remains one of Hollywood's most dramatic cautionary tales. An actor whose immense talent could not outpace his personal demons. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor, one of the most iconic actresses in film history, lived a life full of glamour, drama, and personal struggle. While the public was captivated by her multiple marriages and violet eyes, her battles with alcohol were a less publicized but equally defining aspect of her story. Her relationship with Richard Burton was famously passionate and destructive, and the pair often engaged in marathon drinking sessions that became tabloid fodder. Taylor's dependency on alcohol intensified over the years, especially during the emotional turbulence of her marriages and health scares. She would later admit that drinking was a form of self-medication used to numb the pain of physical ailments and emotional trauma. By the 1980s, her addiction was threatening to end her career and her life. In a bold move for a celebrity of her stature, she entered rehab, one of the first stars to do so publicly, paving the way for future conversations around addiction and recovery. Her courageous battle for sobriety eventually became part of her legacy, alongside her advocacy for AIDS awareness and humanitarian work. Still, the shadow of her drinking years lingered, a reminder of the personal cost behind the Hollywood spotlight. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn, the legendary swashbuckling hero of the adventures of Robin Hood, was as infamous for his off-screen antics as he was adored for his on-screen charisma. With piercing eyes and devilish charm, he became a symbol of reckless Hollywood glamour. But behind the scenes, Flynn lived a chaotic and hedonistic life defined by alcohol, drugs, and scandal. He openly admitted to being unable to say no to temptation, whether it came in the form of whiskey or wild parties. Known for throwing extravagant gatherings that lasted for days, he surrounded himself with excess and controversy. His alcoholism became more evident as his career progressed. Slurred lines, missed shoots, and health issues plagued his later films. Despite his vibrant persona, his body bore the brunt of years of abuse. Flynn died at just 50, his liver swollen and damaged beyond repair. His cause of death was ruled a heart attack, but the real culprit was decades of indulgence and addiction. He lived fast, died young, and left behind a legacy that blurs the line between legend and cautionary tale, an embodiment of Hollywood excess at its most seductive and destructive. W.C. Fields, the iconic comedian, known for his cantankerous, hard-drinking persona, lived a life that eerily mirrored his screen image. With his signature nasal voice and sly wit, Fields became a staple of early Hollywood comedy. But what audiences didn't always realize was that the grumpy, booze-loving character he played wasn't an act. In real life, Fields was rarely without a drink, often sneaking sips during filming or hiding bottles on set props. Friends and co-workers noted that he would mix his morning orange juice with gin and keep whiskey hidden in thermoses marked as coffee. Despite his heavy drinking, he remained sharp and witty, using alcohol as both a prop and a crutch. Over time, his health declined drastically. His face became bloated, his speech slurred, and his liver deteriorated from years of abuse. Yet he never truly tried to quit. His alcoholism took a severe toll, leading to his death from a gastric hemorrhage in 1946. Fields remains a symbol of a bygone Hollywood era, where personal demons were often part of the performance, and sometimes impossible to leave behind when the cameras stopped rolling. Dean Martin, as a king of cool, carried himself with effortless charm, always a drink in hand, a sly smile on his face, and a voice that could melt any room. As one of the Rat Pack's most beloved figures, Martin cultivated a public image as a suave, easygoing crooner who loved his liquor. But that glass of whiskey on stage, more often than not, it was just apple juice. His persona was part performance, part reality. Though not the heaviest drinker among his peers, Martin still enjoyed alcohol in private, often winding down with real drinks after the curtain closed. He was known for his sharp timing, quick wit, and for rarely missing a performance, despite nights that sometimes stretched into morning. Over the years, however, even he couldn't completely escape the wear of the lifestyle. Alcohol took a toll on his relationships, health, and eventually his energy for fame. Following the tragic death of his son in 1987, Martin retreated from the public eye and drank more heavily. Though he never spiraled as wildly as others in his circle, his quiet decline spoke volumes. Behind the smooth facade was a man struggling with grief, loneliness, and the ghosts of a golden age that had faded with time. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra's voice may have been velvet, but his drinking habits were anything but smooth. A loyal fan of Jack Daniels, Sinatra was rarely seen without a glass of whiskey, whether at a smoky Vegas lounge, a dimly lit studio, or a private table deep within Hollywood's elite. Drinking was more than habit, it was ritual. He'd toast friends, celebrate success, drown sorrows, and mark milestones, all with a drink in hand. Sinatra's binges became the stuff of legend. He could party for days, his stamina as impressive as his vocal range. Yet, as the years went on, that devotion to drink began to bite back. His mood became more volatile, his body more fragile. Friends noticed the toll, the occasional slurred words, the swollen face, the late-night calls filled with regret. Though he insisted he had cut back in his later years, whispers of hidden bottles and quiet loneliness persisted. Even his tombstone bears the inscription, "The best is yet to come," a bittersweet echo of a man who gave the world so much but never quite left his vices behind. Sinatra's legacy is golden, but the glass he raised so often cast long, dark shadows in its wake. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney's career began when Hollywood was still black and white, and by the time it turned to color, his demons had deepened. As a child star, Rooney had the world at his feet. Fame, money, and adoration poured in early. But the bright lights of early success cast long shadows, and as he transitioned into adulthood, he struggled to find stable footing. Alcohol quickly became both an escape and a crutch. He drank through failed marriages, 8 in total, and spiraled through scandal, bankruptcy, and breakdowns. Despite his charm and comic brilliance, Rooney's alcoholism often derailed both his professional and personal life. He would show up late to sets, forget lines, or disappear for days on binges that left colleagues frustrated and producers wary. Behind the scenes, his drinking fed into a cycle of impulsive decisions and public embarrassment. Yet, in his later years, something shifted. With help from close friends and family, Rooney managed to regain some control, eventually achieving sobriety. He began to speak openly about his struggles, offering his story as both caution and hope. Though he never regained the stardom of his youth, his late-life honesty gave his legacy a new kind of dignity. The boy who once lit up the silver screen had finally found a quieter kind of peace. John Barrymore. John Barrymore was the prince of the American stage and silent screen, a towering figure in early Hollywood whose talent was only rivaled by his taste for self-destruction. Born into a legendary acting dynasty, he dazzled in Shakespearean roles and swashbuckling films alike. But off-screen, he lived in chaos. Barrymore was infamous for drinking straight from the bottle while performing, sometimes staggering through scenes or forgetting entire scripts. Directors resorted to cue cards and co-stars learned to improvise around his frequent lapses. His once sharp wit became slurred, his striking looks bloated by booze. Friends begged him to stop. Studios fired him. Yet the addiction persisted. Despite multiple hospitalizations and public incidents, Barrymore never stayed sober for long. His decline was heartbreaking, a giant of the stage reduced to comedic cameos where he played exaggerated versions of himself. He died in 1942 at just 60, ravaged by cirrhosis and kidney failure. In death, he became a cautionary tale, proof that fame, genius, and legacy are no match for a bottle when it holds too much of a man's soul. Judy Garland. Judy Garland was a star from the moment she sang Over the Rainbow. But that rainbow never led to peace. MGM studio executives controlled every aspect of her life, her weight, her schedule, even her pills. Introduced to amphetamines as a teenager to stay thin and awake, Garland soon turned to alcohol to calm the artificial highs. It became a devastating cycle, pills to wake, pills to sleep, and whiskey in between. The pressures of fame and her troubled relationships, 5 marriages, constant financial instability, drove her deeper into addiction. She would perform in brilliant bursts of talent, only to disappear in a fog of depression and drink. By her 40s, she was haunted by lawsuits, unpaid debts, and failed comebacks. On June 22, 1969, Garland was found dead in a London bathroom. The cause, a barbiturate overdose. She was just 47. The little girl who melted hearts as Dorothy died exhausted, manipulated and forgotten by the system that built her. Her story remains one of Hollywood's most tragic, where talent was chewed up by the very machine that once praised it. Oliver Reed. Oliver Reed was a force of nature both on and off the screen. The British actor, best known for roles in The Three Musketeers and Gladiator, was infamous for his love of alcohol. More than love, he made it performance art. Reed didn't just drink, he drank with explosive passion. Stories of him downing 100 pints in a weekend or challenging entire pubs to drinking contests are legendary. His charm made these antics seem playful at first, but they masked a deeper problem. His outbursts derailed interviews, scared producers, and caused him to be banned from several studios. Yet despite the chaos, his talent endured. He brought raw masculinity and danger to every role, often filming drunk without missing a beat. His death was poetic in its irony. He died in a Maltese bar during a break in filming Gladiator, after reportedly consuming vast amounts of alcohol and challenging British sailors to arm wrestling. At 61, his liver gave out doing what he was famous for. Reed was a throwback to a time when wildness was glamorized, but even legends fall when they burn too bright for too long. These stars showed the darkest side of fame. Alcohol has swallowed their talent. But do you think Hollywood today tolerates so much drinking? Or are dry sets the rule now? Write in the comments. If you were surprised to learn these stunning facts, don't forget to like and subscribe to Hollywood Echoes. In the next video, we'll discover more dark secrets behind the scenes. Remember, true stories are more impactful than scripts.